Well, hello everybody. We're now live and kicking again with the Inworld review. Welcome to everybody watching on the Metaverse Week in Review. What is the date? I'm always supposed to tell you the date on these things, and of course I can't see it when I want it. And it's not happening. Yeah, May the 12th of 2013. This is the Inworld Review, part of the Metaverse Week in Review, where we launch into sort of discussion and deliver our highlights of the week and everything else, and maybe tell you a bit about the clips coming up and various things happening in world. We've got a rather sparse set of seats here today, but I think you're going to find it all rather very interesting as we go along. I'm just going to start up by, I normally start up by sort of announcing any new news from the Open Sims and Hypergrid, the Metaverse and stuff, and I have to say there is very, very little this week. We are going to be focusing a lot of the discussion in a while on something quite major, which has more to do with LindenLabs and Second Life than anything else, and that is the fact that LindenLabs no longer allow the trading of the Linden dollar on any other exchange other than their own internal one. It is commonly thought that this is to do with new Treasury regulations in the United States, but we'll be looking a little bit later on the impact this is going to have on both in-world business in Second Life and also things like the trading of currency across into Open Sim. There are exchanges around that allow you to convert Linden dollars into Open Sim currency, for example. So that is kind of the headline thing. There have been a number of blogs, you'll find them at Hypergrid Business, sort of wondering whether some of these external currency exchange can survive solely on Open Sim trading. But that's sort of just a part of the issue. It seems that most of the activity in the posts in the Open Metaverse have been about the same subject. So it's a subject that crosses both the Open Metaverse and Second Life. Interestingly enough, although it's less to do with currency than actual goods, the Kitely platform, which is it's sort of open sim and available on the web, but they have opened their own marketplace, as it were, which I believe will be able to sell you goods that you can download to your hard disk, for example, and then import into Second Life. In other words, you buy all the permissions you need, although clearly it's designed to be a marketplace that will work with open simulators and Kitely itself. There has been continued discussion in the greater press, as it were, about health and Second Life. Particularly the fact that people can have very good psychological relationships with their avatars. In other words, the way they perform as an avatar, is beneficial to their organic cells, so to speak. But particularly, a lot of mainstream media have been picking up on the thing about weight loss and Second Life, be it Second Life type activities that are designed to help you lose weight, practical advice and psychological sort of advice too. In other words, if your avatar looks good, maybe your real life self will want to start looking more like their perfect avatar, etc., etc. But these are sort of very incidental sort of news anyway. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Tara, my partner sitting next to me. Hello, Tara. And we will...
and she'll unmute herself so that she can say hello, everybody.
Yeah.
You're fast today.
Maybe we will now get an unmuted version of the latest from you.
Indeed. Well, I hadn't started. I was expecting you to go for another minute or two, so I had to reach for the right mouse. Anyway, greetings from the Pacific Northwest, where after almost 2 weeks of gorgeous sunshine, we have had a little rain overnight, just in time for Mother's Day. And certainly to everyone in the audience who happens to be a mother, happy Mother's Day to you, whether you're in the U.S. of A. or not. Apparently this is a U.S.-centric holiday or observance, but it's, we all have mothers, that not everybody is a mother. My only kids happen to be four-legged and furry. But that's a whole other subject. Anyhow, those of you who are celebrating Mother's Day, I hope your kids are treating you well, or your grandkids, whichever the case may be. Usually, we tend to focus on things that are quite directly related to virtual worlds, and actually, this one is, although it's kind of outside the realm of things we normally think about. Probably one of the most commonly used designer tools for those who build stuff in Second Life is Photoshop, which obviously isn't part of LindenLab's repertoire, but Adobe's. And an interesting development with Adobe is after nearly 10 years of the Creative Suite, they are shifting focus entirely to their Creative Cloud offerings. So basically, for a while, Creative Suite 3 is current Creative Suite 6, is the current freestanding version. It will continue to be available, but there will be no Creative Suite 7 as a freestanding package. Creative Suite 6, apparently, they will continue to issue bug fixes and updates so that it stays usable as OSs change. But they're basically shifting focus to Creative Cloud, which is a monthly subscription setup. I guess the interesting thing to me about this, aside from, there's always that concern with anything that's cloud-based of, well, what happens if there's internet issues getting to your software? But I think the other side of this with cloud is if you look at what it costs for an upgrade to the freestanding Creative Suite, the cloud-based offering is very attractive from a price perspective. That's to cut to the chase. Instead of having to shell out $1,200 or $1,400 for the upgrade, you shell out about half that per year for Creative Cloud. So it's if you use multiple things, it's a great deal. If you only use Photoshop, you can do a single app with Cloud. So anyway, so those of you who are dyed in the wool, you've got to have it local on your desktop. Now is probably the time to bite the bullet and upgrade to Creative Suite 6 if you haven't. And otherwise, welcome to the cloud for Adobe products. Apparently, the new one, which you're calling CC for Creative Cloud, comes out in June. Let's see. An interesting trend that there has got to be somebody who's gonna do this in World. It's being called Algorave. We've heard of raves, which are kind of the the acid party of the 21st century. But the Algorave is a situation in which people dance to a rave-like environment to music generated by algorithms. The goal is to take a common piece of software that allows someone to create music based on an algorithm and then compose tunes live as people dance. Focus is not on the musician, but instead on how people react to what they create, to what the musician creates. Basically, that people come together to dance to algorithms, generally involves some live coding, and also some aspect of the algorithmic processes are visible, but the focus is actually on the audience and having serious fun. So I'm just waiting for somebody to announce that they're going to start doing Algoraves in Second Life, because it seems like a natural fit to me to combine the two. So watch this space. We'll see. Mal's kind of covered the news element of the change in Second Life terms of service relative to the limit on using only the Lindex for dollar exchanges, or for real money to Linden exchanges. From a U.S. centric perspective, this doesn't seem to be a big issue, but as Ziggy, I know, is going to point out, there are many issues for people who are not in the U.S. As far as their ability to actually buy Lindens if they need to. So I'm going to be real interested in hearing Ziggy's comments on this when we get to him. But it's an interesting it's an interesting development. While I'm certainly convinced that the issue here is the change in U.S. Treasury guidelines, that they are obviously jumping through hoops to keep themselves legal. It was an interesting point in one of the blogs, or I guess in comments, wondering that it was rather strange that LindenLab didn't specify that this is the reason for its policy change as far as allowing third-party exchanges, but it clearly is. I guess the one comment I have on all of this is that if you consider the changes that have taken place in the banking industry over the last 10, 12 years, particularly since 2011, endeavoring to tighten up on the ability to track money being used for nefarious purposes and using various means to do so to get money in hands for terrorists and that sort of thing. This is clearly part of that, because anytime you have a virtual currency, it becomes quite possible for people to move money around and move it around outside conventional systems. And obviously people are going to continue to find ways to do that, but when there's a low-hanging fruit that's an obvious, easy way to do it, it makes sense to create to change some rules. So, but not without some fallout. So we'll talk more about that in a bit. And the other thing you're gonna have a chance to see here, we have this little critter fascination that comes out, and I'm a kitty cats fan, and but you're going to get to meet Gempandas today when Ziggy gets here in a little while. But also an interesting item. One of the other newer critters on the block that's actually being done more outside Second Life as far as the actual format, are strangelings, which have been created by some LindenLab veterans, and they're still I guess they're sort of out of beta now, but they've done their first auction house setting where people can sell their pets for real money. And in their first auction, they had one that went for $30 US, which translates to about $7,500 in Linden's. If you're curious about these things, I've certainly seen Inworld auctions on critters that have had some critters generate 7,500 Lindens or better. And certainly in the critter auctions connected with Relay for Life, there have been some way up there 5-figure auction items. I know seems to me there may have been a breedable, an Amaretto horse or something went for 20,000 Lindens or some such on one of the auctions. So that's pretty impressive. But for a new launch to hit that kind of number is pretty impressive. So anyway, it's Strangelings if you want to take a look. Let's see. Mal talked about Kitely and their new market. And Mal, my understanding is that it's selling products to other Kitely users, and it's hoped that eventually they'll be able to users to do stuff across multiple grids. But it's focused on Kitely right now. So since I know Safia is not with us today. But just one little item that would be from her if she was here, and that is, I would say, Designing World's upcoming show tomorrow is a must-watch if you want to get current on the latest on what LindenLab is up to as far as new features affecting viewers and browsers and servers, in particular such things as the whole server-side baking project, which I've talked about several times, and also a number of texture-related enhancements. I've had a sneak preview, of the show, but it involves a number of Lindens on the show. So it's your chance to hear from some Lindens for a change on some of that, and that's airs tomorrow, and then it'll be available for replay via Designing World. So. And also coming up here rather soon, about 8 days away, is the deadline for SL10B applications for exhibitors, performers, and volunteers. So if you haven't gotten your act together yet, literally or figuratively, this is the week to do it because you need to get your applications in. Anyway, that's all on my list at the moment. So on that note, I'm going to toss it back to Mal to introduce our guests and see where we go from here.
Well, thank you, Tara. Yeah, you are quite right. Sadly, Sapphire is not with us today. She's having a week off, and it was going to fall on me to make some announcements for her, but Tara's just done the job for me. This is very true. Tomorrow is Designing Worlds, which premieres tomorrow night, of course. Features 4 Lindens. Sapphire is very fond of saying that Lindens are rather like London buses. You know, when you want one, they never come, and when you don't want one, they come in droves. And she managed to get 4 Lindens to sit down and explain some changes. Basically, we had 2 Lindens who were talking about the new server-side baking, and another 2 Lindens who were talking about the materials project. And all I can really tell you. Sorry, I'm getting somebody's back channeling here. This always happens. Oh dear. Okay. Apparently Tara's crashed out of camera, so I trust Emmo will keep the camera on me until she can get back into that strange exotic place called LindenLab. Second Life. Yes, but the server side changes mean that a lot of the processing is moving to LindenLab servers, notorious servers that they are, and this will hopefully speed up things and allow Second Life to be accessed on lower end systems if need be. And although they won't admit to it publicly, one suspects that this might be the first step in sort of maybe making it compatible with new wave devices like tablets. It's anybody's guess, though. I mean, having shifting stuff to the server does sort of make sense. And the materials project, what I saw of it reminded me of the lighting filter in Photoshop, which Tara was also talking about. But as Tara said, this is a must-see program if you've got time. It airs at 2 p.m., I believe, Second Life time tomorrow. You can see it on Treat TV's live channel, and thereafter we will have it up on a couple of our streams, and it will be all over the place, basically, for you to watch and replay. Tara reminded me of something else that I have now, of course, forgotten, but I've no doubt we will come back to it as we go along. So, the other person who's absent today is Pet Love Pet Shop. She, as you know, it is Mother's Day, and she felt obliged to hop off to see a dear elderly lady. So we've filming today. We've got Emmo who's also joining us on the couch here. Hi, Emmo. We're doing fine. I hope you're doing fine with the camera too. I'll come back to you in a while, but just before I do, you've actually been exhibiting at we were talking about last week, the Art Walk, haven't you, over on the Raglandshire Tiny Sim big event. How did that go? Mm-mm. Yeah. I agree, and I'm afraid it's a shame it was just like a week or so long because I saw a bit of it, but I didn't find the time to really go on the whole walk, which is a real bit of a shame. Also, before getting into greater topics, as it were, you were and Pet Love were involved in it was Sophia, wasn't it, who basically initiated this event yesterday. It was a real life event in, was it Missouri? Massachusetts. Okay, I knew it began with M. Oh, yeah. It's a bit of a shame because I really only caught the end of it. My broadcast alarms sort of went off towards the end of it. I saw Frolic Mills talking about something totally unmentionable. But there were some, yeah, it looked like I actually missed a great array of stuff. There was also it was actually broadcast on live stream by AVU TV, who's of course been on the show before, and I'm quite sure the replay is available and can probably be downloaded and stuff. So I'll be posting that whenever I find an available place to post it, so to speak. Interestingly, there was also another event yesterday, or was it Friday? I forget, which was broadcast, and this was broadcast on Ustream, which is not off my radar, but not top of it, if you see what I mean. And it was on one of the open sims, but it was the first of a sort of metaverse talks series that is a sort of prelude to Avacon, which will be coming up later in the year. I'll be getting Philippe and Joyce on to talk about that in coming weeks. But this involved Chili Kid, who's an author who's quite very prominent in Second Life, interviewing another of her favourite authors, and it was broadcast live from OpenSim onto Ustream, and hopefully I'll be able to link to a replay of that when it becomes available too. So watch my feeds within the coming week for replays of both those programs. Now, I think it's time to open the discussion even further. My next guest, the last guest, our main guest, so to speak, on the program today is an old pal, Ziggy Slade. Welcome, Ziggy.
Hi, Mal.
I'm so glad you can be here. Long time. Now, Ziggy, I will introduce you briefly. First of all, Dusa Dragonash, my colleague at Metaverse Television, describes Ziggy as the master of the blindingly obvious, meaning that he really has a talent for coming up with ideas, and the sort of thing that everybody turns around afterwards and says, "Now, why didn't I think of that?" Yeah. But he's pretty adept at scripting and coming up with ideas and marketing and various things like that. And if you're watching on camera at the moment, I do indeed see that on Ziggy's head is something called a Gempanda, which is one of his remarkable creations. Now, by sheer coincidence, I got Ziggy here because I thought he was a perfect person to talk about the change to the trading regulations over the Lindex and everything else. But I also know that in midweek this week, although it's only open to beta testers, I gather, Ziggy's actually going to be opening up a new hunt sim with these Gempandas, and that in itself sounds quite intriguing. So we have a lot to discuss. If it's okay with you, Ziggy, I'd like to open with the issue of Linden's internalizing their currency, I guess is the best way to put it.
Sure.
And I know from our talk earlier in the week that this is going to have a pretty major impact, isn't it? And you particularly, you're in the UK here. It's not always the easiest thing to do or the quickest thing to do to get funds in and out of LindenLabs at any great short notice, is it?
This is right. For me, I just find it, I'm not particularly organised, and I find it useful to be able to take money out quickly. And I think that's where the third-party exchanges really came in, is that you could basically get money to PayPal instantly. So for a bloke like me that doesn't have a lot of real-life money and occasionally fancies Chinese takeaway and feels guilty about paying for it out of his bank account, it was ideal. I could use a third-party exchange. I could cash out a few Lindens. They go straight to PayPal. I've got a PayPal debit card, so I could spend the money straight away. And with LindenLabs, it's a 1 week wait. And I know a lot of people complain about that and say that they should be more efficient. And I think that really this isn't an issue of efficiency. I think they make they can process it straight away, just like a third party exchange can. They just elect not to in order to provide additional fraud protection. By waiting a week, it makes it very difficult for someone to buy Linden's fraudulently on a credit card and then cash them out, and have real life cash in the bank account. So I think that's why they make us wait a week, and that's the thing that really I find inconvenient. And I think sort of on a wider view of it is, as you say, although PayPal is popular in the USA and pretty popular in the UK, it's not widely used in mainland Europe. And then that makes it difficult for merchants to get money out. It makes it difficult for people who haven't got the right bank account or credit card to purchase Linden's, and all of that makes business difficult, and it's already difficult. I see that as ultimately it could have an adverse effect, because if people can't move the money around, then they won't be encouraged to create in the same way.
It seems to me that LindenLabs have had a history in this way. I mean, I remember the fiasco over gambling at one point, where which is not directly connected to the conversation, but basically things were happening in Second Life that didn't happen in the organic space in America, but they were perfectly legal in Europe and Britain. And of course, suddenly you found LindenLabs, which was supposedly operating a global platform, was running to literally American rules because their servers are based in America. And,
I think to be honest, I think at the time, that wasn't strictly true. Because in Europe, although we allow gambling, we do not allow unlicensed gambling. And what was happening in Second Life was totally unlicensed gambling, which I don't think is legal anywhere.
Actually, you have a very good point. Yes, and
I think that
because there's speaking of the gambling part of it, certainly there are places in the U.S. where you can gamble. The state of Nevada, New Jersey, various Native American casinos all over the place. So it's more, I think, a question of on that one. It was there was a bigger issue of totally unregulatable gambling. The thing I've heard, Ziggy, in reading comments is merchants aside, but for general users who are probably more likely to be buying Lindens rather than selling them, and is the fact that they don't have options for buying Lindens if they don't have a credit card and if they don't have a PayPal account.
I think that's true. I think you're pretty much stuffed if you don't have either of those. That's got to be something that LindenLab is, given the fact that I think is not more than a third of Linden participants in Second Life are based in the U.S. That means 2/3 of the people who are in Second Life are not in the U.S. And so therefore, how are they supposed to, readily be able to buy Lindens?
Yeah, this is interesting on security. Maria, Type of Good Business, posted a blog called Currency Venues Fight for Survival. But there was a comment here in Scoop It, which I used to link into Twitter posts and stuff. A chap called Azel, as a curator there, said, "This is a tough one because people outside the US have real difficulty buying Lindens directly from the lab. However," he points out, "I know of 2 SL users who had their Lindens drained by another avatar, brackets using a scripted object, who then traded out what they'd taken via one of the exchanges. The exchange wasn't a direct party to the theft, just the mechanism the thief used before the lab was able to remove the avatar from the grid. But presumably, there's going to be an argument made here, isn't there, that lack of security." I'm not saying trustworthiness in terms of exchanging the currency, but possible lack of security and verification on the third-party exchanges might have created problems like this?
Well, they were using LindenLab's security API.
Right.
So the third-party exchanges actually connect to LindenLabs to verify that you exist, kind of thing. Although I know that LindenLab have now removed that facility, which obviously makes it almost impossible for them to operate. I mean, I think another danger is that what this does is it will force more unregulated sales in the exchanges were approved by LindenLabs. And now, if someone wants to get money quickly, they can spell Linden's on eBay, and someone else could come and buy them. And I think that is open to a lot more abuse than it would have been to buy from an exchange. But as you say, I think that this really goes back to guidelines issued by the Federal Reserve. And I think that those were provoked by the recent Bitcoin thing.
Yeah, indeed. In fact, actually, what you just said reminds me of the money lending sharks in real life. Take people who've got very little money who need a quick loan, and they end up getting more and more into debt because they can't pay back the loans and the kind of ridiculous interest. So you're suggesting that people might be able to take advantage of people needing their Lindens urgently and give them a lousy rate for it, basically. Good. I
think we'll certainly see a lot more Lindens for sale on eBay, even though that would still be strictly against the rules.
Of course, that presumes that eBay doesn't have something in place to spot those kinds of exchanges and short circuit them.
And
when I first came to Second Life, when I was enthralled from the first moment, and I was one of those people that wanted to get into it straight away. And you aren't allowed to buy Linden straight away. I think you have to wait a little while. And I managed to buy some off eBay, or it could have been at that time I didn't have a credit card, or I didn't have what I needed to buy, but I was able to buy from eBay. And I did 3 or 4 purchases of Lindens before I could buy off the lab, and they were all successful, I have to say.
I'm looking at the text chat in the live TV channel, actually, and it certainly seems that people are commenting on, how poor it is. Basically, they hate this view and that, and it takes a week to get anything from LindenLabs. PayPal. I've heard this about PayPal too. PayPal. A lot of people have had delays on PayPal as well. They know the money's in there, and PayPal finds any excuse to keep it there and presumably make interest before they cough it up. But
I've never had a problem, I have to say, with PayPal. And I've heard people say similar things, but that's never happened to me, I have to say.
Yeah, I've never had any problem with PayPal. Cutting loose of money that has been paid into me at PayPal, moving it over to my checking account. But then I'm U.S. based, so I know in the U.S. there are additional banking kinds of rules that went into effect several years ago that relate to how much delay banks can take before your money becomes available when you make a deposit, because banks were taking royal advantage of that.
Somebody in chat is actually saying PayPal says 9 business days for clearance. This is rather interesting, because I know my PayPal account, not to have to check it, to be honest. I rarely use it, but although I'm in the UK, I have an option of holding the money in US dollars or in Great British pounds. And as far as I remember, I kept it in dollars. In other words, I've opted to keep whatever I get in PayPal in dollars, but mostly because you're often buying a little bit of software or something that's dollar priced and better anyway. But it does occur to me, I mean, do we think that LindenLabs, for example, should start quoting I really don't know how a lot of this works, but their Lindex exchange or whatever in foreign currencies as well as the US dollar? Do you think it would be easier if I could immediately find out from LindenLab what the UK value of my Lindens is at a given point and get them out in British pounds?
Well, I think that would be useful. I mean, again, actually, that was a facility that was provided by the third-party exchange. Furwox, which was the one I used, had a little currency HUD, and you could use it to calculate to any currency, and it would update itself as well, so it'd give you the latest price on Lindens to £1, which is it's quite nice, because I always think to operate Inworld successfully, I think it's very useful to convert prices in Lindens into real currency, so you know how much money you're spending on something, and really how much money you're spending, because I think people do tend to lose perspective of it, and of course, at the moment, really, I have to kind of almost do two conversions, one into dollars and one from dollars to pounds. But yeah, I think that would be useful to have it. But then I've heard other people say that it spoils the immersion, and we don't really want people to know how much real life money that they're spending. I'm talking from a business point of view here.
Yeah, I suspect that's really down to something we know, which is your attention of users. People are in there to role play and escape, and are just immersed in the Second Life environment. Probably really don't care that much at all. They want to collect lots of Lindens so they can buy lots of virtual goods and give the same money back to the Lindens again. But clearly, I think everybody working in Second Life probably has it in the back of my mind. I mean, I don't bring money in or out of Second Life. I've never had it, of course, to. But I mean, it's not impossible. Some enterprise might require that one is able to do so sort of fairly freely. And the idea you're dealing with this private company who's got their own ideas about how you can trade money in and out is would, I think, be a kind of obstacle. And the other thing, I mean, I know a lot of people in Second Life, for example, if they work in Second Life and stuff and they accumulate Lindens, they buy themselves land, estates, or they buy themselves yachts, virtual yachts I'm talking about, and, things that they seem to feel have intrinsic value. But then when you consider it, they're only, they might actually be worth a fair number of US dollars. But they are still only virtual goods, and you often have to question what the value of that investment is over and beyond the virtual world. I mean, I may have, $1,000 US invested in some assets in Second Life, but they're useless to me outside Second Life. They're not.
But I think that.
Yeah, Siggy? Oh.
What And I would put it to you that if you go on iTunes and you buy music from iTunes, you're buying virtual goods. All you're buying is data. You don't have anything tangible. You don't have anything that you can take away with you. But what you're paying for is some entertainment.
Yeah.
And I would say that really, this rolls out into sort of less virtual goods. If you go and watch a football match, well, it costs you £50, and they give you a ticket. All you get for your £50 is a piece of paper. The piece of paper isn't worth £50. Well, the entertainment which it permits you to watch is worth £50. And I think really.
Well, actually, I couldn't agree more. I've been through this before. I mean, if you want an example of virtual goods, the original virtual commodity is
neither is your cable TV. Neither is the DVD you rent.
Right. I mean, the original virtual commodity is currency itself. The moment they started writing, I promise to pay the bearer, And
Sure.
whether or not the gold exists or not, there's more money in the world than there are gold reserves to back it up. So, we are dealing with something that's totally virtual anyway. So, yeah, I take your point. And iTunes, you could say, is different because at least you can move the virtual good around between player and whatever and play it at any time. But I think it was Bruce Willis or one of these major film stars trying to write a will bequeathing his huge music collection to his niece or something, and Apple told him he couldn't because he did not own anything he bought on iTunes. It was simply he had access to play that track via their library, but he didn't have he had no way of transferring it. Whereas if he bought a vinyl record or a CD, of course he could have bequeathed it. Interesting changes to the way the whole economy works, really.
Yeah.
But no, I wasn't saying there was no value in virtual goods. Clearly there is. No. I mean, I've bought loads of things in Second Life. I love having them in my inventory. I don't use half of them, but they're there. I made a choice to grab them. But there's other things I might have bought if they had been exportable, which because they aren't, I haven't bothered buying them. But you make it's a decision you make, really.
I guess this is, one of the ways I make my money. So I do tend to get sort of on my soapbox about it. But it is something I think that every now and then some newbie will come into my store and they'll want things for free, and this is the argument that they use, that they shouldn't have to pay for something that doesn't exist. And I always make this argument about cable TV and football matches and things like that. And then they kind of start to see it and they kind of start to understand that, it's just entertainment. You're just paying a little bit for a little bit of customized entertainment.
And actually, I'll say for myself, if you earn Linden's Inworld and sort of accumulate a little pot of them or something, then, it's exactly what you say, but I'm not actually paying any real money. I've accumulated that virtual currency as if, to do it with. So, no, I have no real complaints there. It's well known fact, has been for many years, that you take the so-called third world countries, particularly South America and things, there is a vast usership there of people in Second Life. And a lot of them are in fashion, they're designing clothes, but all sorts of other things too. There's a huge, whether it's clothes, pets, music, buildings, whatever, there's huge number of things creators can create in Second Life and then sell to those who are maybe less talented and can't do them themselves or don't have the time. And given the nature of the Linden exchange and the Linden dollar pegged to the US, in these countries, people can actually make quite a decent living out of working Second Life, because when they do cash these out, presumably with the Linden waiting time, when they do cash money out in those countries, of course, that value of dollar is worth much more to them in real terms in their daily life than those of us, in what's called the Western world would experience. Sure. So, you have to sell, 1,000 Gempandas or something to, make so much that, maybe buys that Chinese meal. That's probably not that much. But to somebody in the third world, I don't know where they have Chinese restaurants, but they could probably buy 7 meals for the same amount, if you see what I mean. So, there's an element of this that is fascinating. And one wonders the whys and wherefores by which LindenLabs originally decided that the in-world economy, the in-world currency, should be linked to real-world currency. And there are games, for example, where you can get very rich, but you can't take it out the game. At least LindenLabs do allow this sort of taking it out. And this is one of the attractions for people to come in here, because they do see that, if they're here, or having come in, they see that there are possibilities for making money. It's like anything else, where they do so or not, it's not a matter. But if they do succeed, then, it is a platform where they can, as can make real world incomes from it.
And the best part about it is that Linden Labs don't take a cut. Most of the places where you can, they do.
Indeed.
Unless you're selling it on the marketplace.
Yeah, we pay a small amount to use the marketplace, and I suppose they are taking a cut if you sell it in World because you've got to rent land to put it on. But that's all. Whereas I know, for instance, with IMVU, they take 25% off the top, and if you're selling on like 3D models on on Turbo Squid or something like that, they take a big proportion. Or if you're selling photos on iStock. They take 25, 40%, true, things like that.
Or the cut that iTunes takes on music from the sellers of recordings, as distinct from the purchasers. Of course,
yeah. I mean, that's wonder how long before they do, but in a sense, though, you look at Apple or something, who are notorious for putting their own rules on minimums, purchases, and stuff in business, and they do take a big cut. But they are, in effect, acting as a middleman, so they can sort of say that they're in doing that exchange, they have to earn their cut. The thing with Linden's, of course, is that they manufacture their Lindens, and they're not being a middleman. It would somehow ring a bit false if they were taking a cut on selling their own product. I don't go into a shop to buy buy something off manufacturer and then get told I'm going to be surcharged a commission by the same manufacturer.
Well, except that you are, because what you're paying that surcharge in the form of the cost of what you pay for the item.
Yeah, their profit.
So it's just like the item. If anything you buy in a retail store, you're not paying wholesale for it. You're paying retail for it, and there's various middle people who have taken their chunk out of.
That's the way an economy works. But I'm saying, if some people will buy wholesale, they'll buy a quantity, they get them cheaper because they get them wholesale, and even the wholesalers make a profit because it goes to a distributor, and the distributor works with the manufacturer. There's a whole chain. But I'm saying if you were buying straight from the manufacturer at the manufacturer's price, then and there was no middleman, then be charged an amount that included the middleman's costs doesn't ring true, because you bypass the middleman. A bit like farmers in Africa are using mobile phones to deal direct with the distribution system, whereas 10, 20 years ago their whole economy was, they were very poor. There were so many middlemen involved that all taking their cuts down the route. Now they're empowered by being able to go up that chain. And the principle is simply they're no longer, a certain level of middleman is no longer needed in the new economy. So everybody gains. The manufacturer still sells, the farmer still sells their product, but they get a better price for it because they don't go through all these middlemen anymore. So, that's the reason things have improved. So, the last thing they will want is to be charged more again on the excuse that some invisible middleman is getting the cut. But anyway, I digress. It just seems to me that LindenLabs have a wonderful habit of taking anything good in Second Life and buying it in for themselves, as they did with the original Second Life marketplaces. There were, 3 of them, I think, and eventually they all got taken over by LindenLabs, so there's now only one real marketplace, and that's at LindenLabs. There's no opportunity for somebody to have an online marketplace where they make a profit, because those companies were bought up, and the whole thing's been monopolized by LindenLabs. And there is something about this treasury requirement or no, there is something about this move with the currency that makes me think, now they're monopolizing the whole currency exchange again, and this is going to affect independent operators. And I think to broaden this out a bit, maybe before we move on to another subject, is how this is actually going to affect people in world. Both, consumers will only be affected by whether businesses go out of business or how it affects the business, really. But there is a suggestion that the complications on all this, basically by cutting off the ease of transactions, may be detrimental to some businesses, some smaller businesses, and of course, if they go out of business, the whole Inworld economy will suffer. Do you think there's any chance of that, Ziggy?
I think that at the moment, Second Life it's been in a very, very slow decline for a long time, for a good few years, really, probably since about 2007, 2008. But it is a very, very slow decline. I think I saw the other day a report, an estimate, that in the last 3 years that they'd lost something like 7,500 Sims or something like that, which really wasn't a very many as a percentage of the whole amount. That's the amount that are being rented. So it does seem like it's in a slow decline. And I think whenever anything like this happens, I know when the banks went, well, probably not so much the banks, but certainly when gambling went, when the marketplace was changed, when Viewer 2 came out, there's always these predictions of a sort of a mass exodus. And people will often tell you there's a mass exodus going on. But there isn't, and I don't think there will be. I think we'll continue probably with a slow decline. Possibly if the real world economy takes a turn for the better, that slow decline might slow down or even become a slight increase. Mm-hmm. But I don't see anything dramatic happening.
Okay. I guess my sense is that to me the issue is for regular users, non people who don't have businesses. The issue is how easily they can acquire buy Lindens. Sure. For those who don't have a net income in World. In other words, people who are putting real dollars into Second Life. I mean, I've had occasion to buy Lindens a few times, and my understanding is that people who are outside the U.S., this is a great deal more difficult, and by limiting it to the Lindex, as far as being able to buy Lindens, as far as if you don't have a credit card, you've got to have PayPal. Well, what if you can't get PayPal? Then you're screwed. So that's
okay. A quick little apology to people who were watching the live broadcast. It's a technical thing, but apparently you haven't been hearing Emmo Wee's voice. So if you thought Emmo sort of dropped out of the conversation, you're actually quite right. Basically, he's recording a Skype call, and of course, the recording doesn't take the person who's sort of recording the call, if you see what I mean. I was saying, I can ring back, but I just realised that won't help at all. It still puts him in the same position. So you're welcome to come in a little bit, Emmo, if you want, but I think we'll have to assume that the audience may not hear you, so you can just help us trigger the conversation, if you like. Okay, moving away from the currency thing, I've got a feeling this is going to run and run, and it's obviously going to be a while before we see the full effects. I do know there's a lot of the booths and things in World that related to Weirvolt, and the others no longer function, even though there's supposed to be a 30-day grace period. So we'll see how that impacts. But what I'd like to get onto, Ziggy, is I don't know whether Emmo on the camera can sort of zoom out slightly a bit, but we have these wonderful critters wandering around here, right in front of the stage, right in front of my feet, really. And these are called Gempandas. Now, you've launched these some time ago. We're really fond of our critters here. It's a pity Sapphire's not here, or she'd be buying up a few, I think. We do like our kitty cats and dragons and all the other critters we end up with on stage here. These ones are wonderfully cute. You've got one on your shoulder. You've got a few of them sort of wandering around here of their own accord with a bit of AI routine or scripting, haven't you? And of course, you are working on this sim you mentioned to me the other day, where there's going to be a hunt for the people in the Gempandas group. So maybe you'd like to tell us a bit about that.
Okay, well, Gempandas are first and foremost a breedable pet. We've got a very genetic breeding system that was actually designed by someone who's a biologist in real life. So they were very keen that we followed the laws of nature. So we've got a massive, extensive genetic breeding system. But then, as well as that, we wanted to sort of add a bit more functionality to Gempandas. So you can pet a Gempanda, you can wear a Gempanda, as you can see the one that's bobbing around on my shoulder and head. You can ride on a Gempanda as well.
I must say,
they come in different sizes. So there's one that doesn't look silly being ridden by a regular-sized avatar.
I was just going to say, actually, I do love the shoulder pet because there are lots of shoulder pets in Second Life, but this one has got a mind of its own. It wriggles all over you. You know, I think it's definitely an added touch.
Sure. And as well as that, we've got a sort of an extra game that you can play alongside the breeding game. And basically, you can take your Gempanda hunting. You hunt for magic ingredients. You mix the magic ingredients in a magic cauldron to create a magic potion. You give the magic potion to your Gempanda, and he learns a spell for each new magic potion that you give him. And then he can use that spell in a spellcasting tournament against another Gempanda. So it gives a sort of extra little game that we can play alongside that, and we also allow people to buy and sell or trade the magic ingredients that they collect and the potions that they create. So it gives a sort of extra dimension to our secondary market that a regular breedable doesn't have.
And on top of that, presumably, do you have to buy food to feed them and this sort of stuff?
Yeah, you do have to buy food to feed them, but they're quite cheap to feed. They only need one thing to live off, and they don't get sick, and they don't die, and they don't run away. So they're easy to keep.
Do they have I have kind of not kept up very well. Do they have a lifespan as far as breeding is concerned? In other words, do they cease to be breeders after a certain age?
They don't actually have a lifespan. They breed 12 times, and then they stop. But they don't die. They just don't breed anymore after the 12
times. Okay, but yeah, it was how long they will continue to breed. So it's a number of times they breed rather than a number of days.
That's right. So that could be over potentially 12 weeks or over 12 months, or as long as you wanted it to be.
And how? And presumably, the market presumably is defined by, in the breedable sense, people can sell the bred ones, and they all adopt,
that's right.
They adopt different character traits, so some unique character traits.
That's right. Yeah, there's lots of different traits that you can breed for. Size being one of them, and some traits will be rarer than others, and obviously that will create an interesting secondary market. And we've already got a big group gathered, ready for the launch. So it's looking promising.
So the launch and the hunt that's going with it is only open to the you've got a big group, haven't you? Several thousand members.
Yeah, we've got about 1,400 members now.
1,400, right.
It's free to join, so people can just join the group and then they can take part in the beta testing.
Right.
Doing it in sort of phases because we want to sort of break our servers in gently. So we're going to start off with our hunting game. Then we're going to move on to testing our magic cauldron, and then in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to be we'll have the pets actually on the grid breeding as well.
Great. So, what is the name of the group they would join if they fancy it?
It's Gempandas, Nice or Naughty.
Gempandas, Nice or Naughty. Okay, folks. Well, if you look that up in Second Life groups, and it's free to join, I presume, is it, or is there a joining fee?
Yeah, free to join. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you join up there, you'll be able to take part in the beta testing. And something I'm certainly hoping to do for maybe next show, who knows, is to grab a bit of film footage of, I don't know how much you want to give away, but you were telling me a bit about the sim where the hunt is taking place. And the build there sounds rather complex and almost a hunt in itself.
I wanted to make an interesting area for people to come hunting, and I guess one of the things that a game that really influenced me, I think, in my design, it was kind of in my head a lot, was Tomb Raider. I don't know if you can remember, anyone remembers the PS1 version of Tomb Raider, but it was a big hit with me, I can tell you, and so I guess that inspired me a little when I made our hunt area. So it's a full sim in size, but without giving too much away, it's got the surface area, or the area that you can walk on, of 4 sims. So read into that what you will. It's deep, I'll say.
It's deep, yes.
Yeah.
How deep can this conversation get, I ask? Yes, okay. Well, I think I know enough to. There's something very familiar sounding about this that I was sort of thinking of on OpenSim, so it's quite fascinating. And actually, again, I'm not going to give away anything you don't want to give away, but it involves something that I would have thought might have been an obvious approach, but as Doozy says, you're a master of the obvious. I can't actually think of any other sim immediately that really has used that technique, shall we say, on the landscaping side. So I guess we'll leave it at that. Anything else you want to share with us while you're here, Ziggy? I mean, Gempandas, and of course, I wanted your comments on the currency business, but anything else? Exciting. Well, anything exciting going on.
I don't do anything apart from Gempandas, Mal. That's all I do. I sleep and do Gempandas.
Yeah.
The critters do become rather involving.
Yeah, but you do. You have other products too, don't you? Isn't it? I keep about to say Mad Pete. No, it's Big Cow. I can't remember the name. Big Cake. That's it. Oh, we should have Slimmy here.
I sell party and sort of romantic things. I've got a load of wedding cakes and lots of decorations for all the regular events. What's next? Independence Day is probably the next big one. Certainly for Halloween and Christmas and all that, I have a lot of stuff for those kind of events.
It was really fascinating just before we come on air here, because being broadcasters, we fiddle around with various things, HUDs and whatever, to facilitate good broadcasting, basically. And Emmo, who's filming this, standing in for Pet Love this week, loaded, and I saw it come up in chat, a sort of camera HUD, or a TV broadcast HUD, which I don't know whether it's one I've got or not, but you immediately said, "Oh, that's one of mine." So you're also
excited to see someone using my product. It's so actually using it is so cool.
Well, I love those things, because they actually empower. They actually empower us. Sorry, was that Emmo? Oh yeah, hi Emmo.
Oh, thank you. You're too calm. I'm blushing.
Well, if Skype is messing with your sound, Emmo, my NVIDIA card seems to have ideas about not liking Second Life today, and has just given me a black screen for the third time, and lost connection with this message about Windows timeout limit.
Oh, Lord. You're still visible to us on camera.
Yeah, well, that's because my avatar hasn't. It's one of those that when I relaunch Second Life, the first time I log in, it says you're still logged in, And so that when I try logging in again, it would log out my avatar. But she also hasn't had voice since the last time she logged in again. So I think I probably need to restart my computer. So I think you'll see me for as long as my avatar is there. Yeah. You'll continue to hear me in voice.
Exactly. Yeah. You have just vanished, according to my radar.
Yes, there I go. There I go. Yes, I see. My avatar just vanished, and so it's just the ghost of Tara.
One of these days. So is it Windows? Is it Second Life? Is it, we can't. I think this is one thing we possibly cannot blame on live stream. So it's either Skype, it's Windows, it's Second Life. There's always somebody to blame, isn't there? I think this, therefore, is probably a good opportunity to wrap up. If you didn't hear Emmo, he was really just complimenting Siggy on how amazing this HUD is. So actually, after the show, I'm going to investigate to make sure I've got this particular one and know what it does. It's buried in my inventory somewhere. I think we'll go back over to Metaverse Working Review, where we've got a whole load of clips lined up for you, far more than we can possibly show. We have one coming up, the Acceptance Independent Ballet, which is interesting. This is not just a ballet performance in World, but it's sort of narrated and is quite interesting too. And we have a long form video near at the end from Double Trouble, which is a sort of 30-minute sort of musical thriller. I think that might be the right description. Plus loads of arts, new machiniment's come up. We've got 3 new ones on the Reflections theme, which are for the University of Western Australia's contest. And, plenty other besides. So I hope you enjoy the clips we got to show you later. And do, even though we're closing this bit of the show, do hang around and stay with the channel, because it's a feast of good stuff, so to speak. I just realised I still have Tara's voice, even though we don't have her here. This is true. This is the bit where I should say, well, we now go back to Tara for around... For Amanda, have you got anything else to tell us in your invisible presence, Tara?
the ghost of Tara.
Yeah.
the virtual non-presence. There we go. Well, hey, Tyga is here, so my Inworld familiar is present. Will that do?
Very true. Right.
Yeah. Well, just reminders from earlier in the show. Don't forget, this is your final week to get those applications in for the 10th birthday celebration. So please do if you haven't. I finally got mine in, having finally come up with, after actually looking at the application form and head scratching on what I wanted to do. And I came up with an idea. So anyway, on that note, I'm going to toss it back to Mel, and have a great week, everyone. And I hope those of you who are observing Mother's Day are having a wonderful visit with your moms and or with your offspring, and or their offspring, depending upon what the appropriate configuration happens to be. So, on that note, see you next week.
Okay, thanks, Tara. Well, I would agree with that, of course. Although I suspect actually, if people are spending the day with their mom, it might explain why they're not here. It just occurred to me, that one. Right, okay, well, nothing else for me to do, really, except to plug the channel again, keep watching it, and say thanks to Emmo for filming this week's episode, and also for partaking lightly in the conversation, albeit with glitches from Skype. So thank you, Emmo. And thanks to our really special guest this week, Ziggy Slade, or actually I should say Ziggy 21 Slade. I think
it is indeed. Thank you very much for having me, Mal.
Well, no, I've got a white dot over your avatar, and it's obscure. It's obscuring the 1 and made it look like a 4. And I thought, hang on. But it's been great to have you here. All the exciting stuff, and I hope we'll have you back here again before long.
Cool.
Great to see you. Okay, so it is, as we say in the business, a wrap, and I'm going to cue us out now and take us back to the channel. So Emmo is going to cut the live stream whenever he wants, and I'm going to cue some more clips.